This is Anime Out of Context, a comedy review podcast hosted by a weeb of the highest order, alongside a cynical man who knows nothing about anime. Our show features spoilers, explicit language, and poor fact-checking. Neither of our hosts are experts on any topic, and none of their opinions should be taken as fact. Thank you for listening, and enjoy.
Welcome to Anime Out of Context, the show where I attempt to explain the sometimes weird, sometimes wonderful, but always hilarious world of anime.
And like a... no, fuck, I fucked it.
You want another go at that, buddy? Old two-take Remington there?
Hey, listen here, you cunt. All right. And just like the 2000 movie, Bring It On. Nah, fuck, I just fucked it. You know what? No, fuck it. No intro this week. I had a quip. It related to the pre-venture and everything. No more. Fuck it. This is how we're starting.
Simultaneously giving Dylan more and less work. Fantastic. I'm Sean Rollins.
I'm Remington Chase. However, whatever our editor, he decides to handle. Oh, all right. This is a cursed episode already, Sean. I'll be honest.
Oh, it's gonna get even more cursed. Just you wait.
Oh, that's not what I want to hear.
So we're back, Remington. I'm back in my hosting seat. I am more or less recovered from my previous trial.
I feel rejuvenated. But it's a situation where it's like last week I felt so powerful and happy celebrating April Fools with you, but now I'm feeling a lot less safe.
You really think I'd turn it around and make a very vicious reply to an April Fool's episode?
Oh, man, because that's definitely never happened before on this podcast.
I mean, look, man, history, if you don't record history, it's doomed to repeat itself, they say. And thankfully, we have several episodes of the show so that we've recorded history, so it's not likely it's going to happen again, right?
I don't think that's how logic works.
Nah, man, since we so clearly remember all the times that it has happened in the past, very clearly it can't happen again.
Yeah, sure. So, with all this BSing aside, what exactly are we doing this week, Sean?
Funny you should mention BSing.
Oh, no. Oh, no!
I almost forgot to give you a BS episode in this block of 10, man.
That's fine. That is so okay.
Except it's not, and I don't think I can convince the folks to have you have another go at it. So I have a very, let's see. I have a bit of a interesting one for you this time. And I'll be honest with you, man. I'm not choosing this anime to torture you this time around.
That's just one of its secondary functions. Sure, it's not. It's primarily because many people have recommended it. It's secondarily to torture me, which, as it happens, they have all mentioned in their recommendations. What a coincidence.
Actually, Remington, it's a pretty even split. There are some people who think you'll find the show interesting and have some good qualities to it. Other people think it's an edgy piece of mess and think they'll have fun listening to you watch it and give your thoughts and views on it. But honestly,
I mean, statistically, the flowchart works like this: is it anime? Yes. Probably won't like it.
I mean, that is fair, but at the same time, Remington, honestly, I personally like the show quite a bit, but not for the reasons most people like it.
All right, so it's got some, like, big titty waifus, and you pretend that's not why you like the show, because you actually like it for the plot? That's my prediction.
Actually, most of the waifus are pretty modest in chest size.
God damn.
Yeah, no, I took notes of these things.
Of course.
I mean, I have the title of weeb for a reason, I suppose. But no, the show we're talking about today, Remington, is actually probably one of the most popular shows of 2016. A lot of people's anime of the year, as well as a very long-awaited second season that is currently airing right now that I've been watching, and I've been enjoying it pretty well so far.
So you're telling me that it's very likely I'm gonna crush some dreams today?
I mean, honestly, Rem, if you don't really enjoy this episode after this show, I should say, after the episodes you watch, I'm not gonna be too heartbroken by it because the fan base for this one is complex, to say the least. Because the show we're talking about today is simply called Re:Zero Karahajimeru Isekai Seikatsu.
That one I've seen a lot of around, like, our Discord and stuff.
Yep.
Once again, I try to remain nice and ignorant. That's pretty easy to do. But I'm trying to figure out like why or in what context I've seen. I'm not sure. No idea.
Well-
wait, is there like a blue maid?
There is, Rem.
All right, that's all I know.
Well,
There's my knowledge.
there is a blue maid. There's also a red maid, too. Her
Okay,
sister.
so are they all maids?
No. They just happen to be maids. Servants,
okay.
if you will. But the reason you know about it is because, one, it's very heavy in the pop culture scene for anime fans in general since 2016, especially since it just got its second season, but also due to the fact that it started a pretty strong waifu war, and that's part of the reason you've heard of it, because...
Oh, well, if there's a waifu war, then I have to take a stance before I know anything about anything.
Okay, well...
Give me the candidates.
So there's the main two people that are in competition for best girl. There's a couple other sides, but the first two are the ones that people argue the most.
This is the main war.
Yes, the main war that like 80% of people are on one side versus the other. You have the main girl, Emilia.
Okay, Amelia.
Yes, Emilia. Very, very. She's like the main character. She's got long white hair.
You know what? Nah. I don't believe in Amelia. Screw Amelia. My vote is for the other one.
Okay, then your vote.
I don't feel good about Amelia. Whoever the other one is, she has my vote.
Okay, so
100%. No take backsies.
Okay, so then your vote is for that blue hair maid who is simply named Rem.
Oh. God damn.
You fell into my cleverly placed trap.
I feel like at some point or another, I might have been, like, I feel like I have some forgotten memory of her being called Rem or something like that. Like, I feel like I've been told this sometime. We've had one other character named Rem before.
Yes, and that was in How Not to Summon a Demon Lord.
Wasn't great, I'll be honest.
No. A vastly inferior Rem. And hilariously, Rem, you are actually siding with the majority here. Most people really, really love Rem in this show.
Well, people love Rem all the time, Sean. Except when they listen to this podcast.
No, yeah, the most decisive Rem haters are our listeners. So...
But, okay, well, the Rem and Rem combo.
Yes.
I officially endorse Rem without knowing anything. Hopefully, she's a good representation of all Rems.
I think she's pretty solid. And the main reason why there's this big decisive thing is because she has the most character development between the two in the first season, is the way I would say it, as well as the fact that most people just want good things for her. And I will say myself, I like Amelia.
So wait, it's like the opposite of me, who has very poor character development on this podcast, and no one wants good for.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay, I think I have a good grasp.
Which makes you guys a good pairing. Which I can't wait.
It's a yin-yang effect.
I can't wait for the fan art of you and Rem hanging out, or just you cosplaying as Rem.
Oh no! Boy.
That's what I want. That's what I really want. I'll even sacrifice myself and have me be dressed up as Ram if that makes people happy. Yes, her sister's name is Ram, by the way.
The fuck? So why wouldn't you expect like the waifu war to include her sister?
You'd think that, but Ram is very good as a side character, but Rem just has a lot more like of the moe effect, you would say. Like Ram is great, honestly, like because Ram is snarky and really solid kudere type, who cares about her sister quite a bit. But again, like there's a lot of plot things that happen that like shoot Rem into the heights of things, and Amelia gets a lot of shit because the main character is simping hard for her.
Oh, perfect. All right, well, we've talked a lot about the waifus.
Yes.
What we have not done at all is talk about like the show.
Yes. All right, so as you can guess by the title, which once again is ReZero Kara Hajimeru Isekai Seikatsu.
Yes.
You should recognize some of those words, but
I recognize one very troubling word.
Yes. But the English title is simply ReZero with the subtitle Starting Life in Another World. Pretty generic title. People just call it ReZero because that second part doesn't matter as much.
So, I mean, let's address the elephant in the room. It's an isekai.
Yes. And as we all know, no, isekais are like 78% trash, and like 12% pretty decent, and then like a small percent god awful I want to die.
Yes, a small percentage is god awful I want to die. Only a small percentage.
Look, man, I have a high tolerance for a lot of this bullshit, and some of the ones we cover that make me want to die are in that tiny percent. Others in the broader category I can deal with. But this one is definitely in the good category as far as I'm concerned. But like it's in the controversial category, all due to one thing. The main character is kind of an awful person.
That can be fine, depending.
But that is actually kind of the point of the show.
All right, that's good. But we need to make sure when it's like the point of the show, is it they're generally aware of it but still don't really do anything to address it or point it out or even care about it? Or is it like it's the point of the show because it's like, hey, look, what he's doing is real bad and being an asshole?
He does go through character development, actually. A lot of it, through some very painful methods. Basically, our main character goes through this entire season, and by the end of the first season, he's a half-decent person.
Okay.
Yeah, because this show, in a way, parodies a lot of other isekai, because it's a self-aware isekai.
That's a good first start.
Yes. Okay, so let me get into the details for you. So our main character is Natsuki Subaru.
Good old Subaru.
Yep. You have a card joke in there, or are you just gonna let it slide?
No, I'm just excited to see their companion and sidekick Suzuki.
They are. Suzuki is best girl. That's all I'm gonna say. And I'm sure there is a Suzuki out there in the anime verse that is a good character, but I can't think of one for the life of me off the top of my head. But yeah, no. Natsuki Subaru is basically your pretty bog standard Hikikomori otaku.
Yes, I understand exactly what the fuck that means.
Have I not told you about Hikikomori?
If you have, it has too many syllables that are incomprehensible to me for me to remember.
Okay. Well, Hikikomori is it's a Japanese term, right? To define a particular lifestyle. It comes from Japanese for being pulling inwards, being confined, essentially acute social withdrawal.
Oh, so is he a neat?
Basically, yes.
Hey, see, I do know some terms.
Yes. He's basically a neat. Neats and Hikikomoris go kind of hand in hand, but he's on the younger side of things, so he's not quite neat level. So he's not I believe he is an adult by the time of the show, but he's not like, proper adult.
All right, sure.
But yeah, so it's basically he's the worst kind of otaku, right? So he loves anime and all that jazz, but he never socializes with literally anybody. He keeps to himself all the time. He constantly berates couples he sees on the street for being, gross and normies and things like that. Very cringeworthy stuff. But contrary to most hikikomoris, he actually does kind of take care of himself a little bit. He exercises a bit regularly and can at least fend for himself. He's just got that shitty otaku attitude, right?
Okay, I got you. So I'm just imagining like a younger Sean right now.
It's funny you should mention that, Rem. You are actually kind of correct.
Hey!
Like young junior high Sean, right? Before I realized that I was a piece of shit and needed to change.
Before he met me. Then his life
no.
all
After I
came
met you, I
together.
realized I needed to be more of a piece of shit to bring you down a bit. But no. This show is actually kind of painful for me sometimes, Remington, because I see a lot of myself in Subaru specifically, like past Sean and some of the things I've done and said that make me want to roll over and die. Like old school Chunibyo style stuff.
So obviously they're gonna get like transported to the other world, right? My question, a few questions. First, just a handful of questions. First of all, is he the only one isekai'd into a completely different world, or is it like a bunch of people in a game or just group setting? 2, are the other people in the world also isekai'd? And 3, is it permanent or is it just like log in, log out?
Okay, so this is a true to form isekai, where it's only Subaru.
Okay.
He is actually, it literally starts off with him in his world at a convenience store, buying some snacks and magazines and whatever. I think he actually buys a copy of Jump, if I'm not mistaken. But then again, I've seen so many of these goddamn isekais that could just be like a standard thing that otakus buy to keep the stereotype alive. But And as he's walking out of the convenience store, his vision gets a bit blurry. He starts blinking. He rubs his eyes a bit, and the next thing he knows, he's standing in a busy market square surrounded by all kinds of fantasy creatures in a medieval style settings, as well as fantasy races and fantasy setups with little flavors of magic here and there. And he is just suddenly in this other world.
That's very abrupt.
Oh, yeah. So it's just him being isekai'd. Whether or not there are other people that have been isekai'd, at this point in the story, we don't. All we know is that he's just been he's kind of found himself in this world and doesn't quite know why. Pretty bog standard. They get that out of the way very quickly. And the story progresses from him trying to figure out what is going on, but he quickly realizes, oh, wait a minute, I've been isekai'd. Which, being a rather stereotypical otaku, entitled, prideful guy, like you'll quickly realize this guy's biggest issue is that he's prideful as fuck. It's just a good amount of lust to keep things balanced. And he starts having the assumptions that, oh, I've been isekai'd, so clearly this is amazing. This is going to be great for me. I'm going to have all kinds of wonderful benefits, and I'm going to be a hero in this world.
Okay. The standard isekai fantasy.
Exactly. Like, he's actually getting to live the isekai fantasies that he's consumed so many times. Like, I can almost guarantee that fucking Subaru watched Sword Art Online. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But yeah, there's no doubt in my mind about that. But he immediately goes into this very nonchalantly. He adjusts pretty quickly, is starting to try and figure things out, and I'll give Subaru some credit. He's not a complete idiot. He's just so prideful, and he basically, in D&D terms, he has the wisdom score of some of my characters, let's just say.
Fair enough.
So, like, he has a decent amount of intelligence behind him, and he's not really ever malicious per se. He's not out to cause people harm. He's just selfish and prideful, and that can be a problem. Like, there's the center of him is like, there's some good qualities buried deep within, and people can sometimes see them, but he's such a dumbass when it comes to social situations and what to do and what not to do in the situation, and assuming he's got some kind of entitlement to him, that it gets him into a shit ton of trouble and makes people want him to die, especially those watching him.
Yeah, all right, sounds relatable.
Yeah. Like, when I first watched this, when it first came out, I did not like the show at all.
Ooh,
and then I started
to
I started to realize, oh, wait a minute, it's because I relate to some of the shit Subaru did. And then, like, more and more people started analyzing it, and I'm like, oh my god, I was Subaru. Oh god, I was Subaru. Well, this is going to be painful to watch. But actually watching him go through and suffer consequences for shit is very interesting.
Well, I look forward to watching what amounts to your home movies personified.
Ugh, yikes. I will say, though, if what had happened to Subaru in this show happened to young Sean probably would not be as well put together as Subaru is. And Subaru is not well put together, let's just say. But yeah, so after he's been isekai'd, the show progresses. He meets Amelia, who rescues him in an alley. Immediately falls for her, thinking of her, oh, this must be my heroine of the story.
Oof.
Big oof. And immediately falls for her and tries to do everything in his power to get into her good graces. Amelia is in a hurry because she got a precious item stolen from her. And Subaru offers to help. Partially because he does care and wants to help her, but also partially because, well, you can probably guess why.
Yep.
Yeah, like, he has good intentions when they benefit him, is basically how I would like to...
He has good intentions when he wants to get his dick wet.
Yes. Like, he does enjoy helping people, but they usually come from insincere places to start with. And so he goes around, helps her, does some genuinely nice human things from time to time, helps a little girl get back to his family, and then after a certain point, they find the person who stole her item, try to get it back, and then the next thing Subaru realizes is he's standing in front of a familiar cart with a man trying to sell him an apple.
Oh?
A scene that seemed to have happened hours before.
Okay.
And that is basically where the show starts.
Okay, I'm interested. I think it has sincere potential.
Yep.
It has some risk factors, of course, namely the existence of it being an isekai.
Yep.
Even if it's self-aware, it's still a red flag, still needs to be monitored. But I think it at least has It has potential.
Yes, and I will say one more thing. This show is edgy as fuck.
Okay, I can get down with that.
Yeah, like, basically, it's what would happen if Dylan was a recluse otaku weeb.
Our good old editor. I mean, I just anything dark, edgy, and spooky I associate with him. So this is like if you two had a love child.
A lot of yes, in a way. It is, and we were awful parents. Let's just say. Let's just add that caveat in.
Oh no, that was assumed.
Yeah. Because my God, there are some moments that make me cringe violently, but I feel like they were supposed to. Like, cause Subaru really wants to be the hero isekai, so he does things like poses dramatically, introduces himself using cliches. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, Rem. It's pretty bad, but it's like on purpose bad, so it's fine. But at the same time,
okay. But you know, before we jump in, there's a very, very important thing that I think we need to briefly go over, Sean.
Yes, Remington.
Because at the beginning you mentioned, BS, funny I should mention that. So I assume that you are using the bullshit rule, which for those who don't know, normally we watch 3 to 5 episodes of an anime, but once for every set of 10 episodes or so, he can just say, no, we're not just watching 3 to 5, we're watching however many he damn well pleases. So I assume you're implementing that, and I have to ask, how many episodes of the show am I watching, Sean?
Well, honestly, Rem, part of me didn't think the show needed the bullshit rule at first because
I agree with that. Don't let the peer pressure of our listeners get to you, Sean. I can form a substantial and sufficient opinion within 3 to 5 episodes.
Yeah, because actually the first arc is pretty well self-contained and gives you a good idea of how the show could progress forward. But
That's
the
what I
problem
like
with
to
that
hear.
is, Rem,
This is not what I like to hear.
is Rem doesn't show up in those first 5 episodes.
C'est la vie. What can you do?
Well, I mean, she does, just at the very beginning of the 5th episode. And I don't know, Rem, I feel like since we're watching this and you share your name with a character that we just have to watch enough to at least get a good flavor for things. It's not going to be much more than that, though. I honestly think that the debate is whether or not I want you to finish the second little arc. Because I will say, there is, like, the unique power mechanic in this show is definitely a time travel mechanic, right?
Okay, yep.
Yeah, like that's one that you get pretty well figured out, which is a very good way to start a first episode, and kind of spoiling that is kind of a thing, but it's the mechanics behind it that make it really interesting, in my opinion. And each arc is divided by these time travel checkpoints. So I was thinking I could get you to the end of the second checkpoint, was my plan.
And how many episodes would that take, out of curiosity?
That would take about 8 or 9 episodes. But in all honesty, I think I can probably because I want you to have at least a decent opinion of the show, and I don't want to shove too much of it down your throat at once.
Hell yeah, fuck them weebs.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, Remington. So in all honesty, I think I'm only going to have you watch the 7 episodes.
All right, could be worse.
Yeah, that'll get you partway through the second arc, and I feel like that's a good amount. So yeah, there you go, Rem. And be careful, because there is a director's cut out there.
Oh.
Yep, and I haven't watched the director's cut. That might have been a better way to display this to you, but at the same time, it might also be a bit much for you, because the director's cut is like double-length episodes.
Oh, good God, fuck that shit.
But it also like condenses some of the broader episodes into one manageable piece. So it's interesting. I might rewatch the director's cut, and if we do revisits to this, we might have you watch that instead. But for right now, I think just watching 7 episodes of ReZero should get you a pretty good idea of the flavor of shit you're dealing with. It's got a little bit of that mystery element, a little bit of that edge element, a little bit of that magic, mystery, some political stuff. It's honestly a very interesting setting and world. It just takes a lot. You got to get through Subaru to get to the good stuff, is what I would say. And even then, sometimes Subaru can be some of the good stuff.
Well, here's hoping.
Yeah. So without further ado, Remington, let's go watch some ReZero.
自分の過去にとらわれ迷ってそうじゃないと言い聞かせて全てを
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back after consuming 7 whole episodes of the hit 2016 anime ReZero Kara Hajimeru Isekai Seikatsu. And Remington, you're on a bit of weird ground, honestly, because this is one of those anime that has people either solidly neutral or loving it, and the haters of it are definitely in the minority from what I can tell. So I'm curious to see if you're going to raise the ire of anybody in particular this time around.
Well, there's a couple things that we're going to figure out as we go, right?
Okay.
Which has been a trend for like the past month. But one thing I just want to sort of foreshadow. So I did go all in on one of the main waifus in part 1 of the podcast.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I went all in on, as it turns out, my namesake, Rem.
Yep.
As opposed to Amelia.
Yes.
Without saying too much quite yet, I either made a brilliant decision or the worst decision, because one of those two characters is the worst character of the entire show, easily. Which one of those two is? Wait and find out.
Well, I guess we know you're gonna piss somebody off.
I'm gonna piss half the community off, and then half is gonna be like, fuck yeah, it's not my waifu. So that's how it's gonna go.
Well, depending on who you choose, it's probably gonna be more like 70% of the community and like 40%.
I forget which one you said was more favorable, so I can't say if I'm gonna piss more people off or if it'll be in the majority. Who knows?
No, that's hard to say. Season 2 hasn't ended yet, so we don't know if anybody's opinions are gonna skyrocket or descend into hell.
Okay.
But with that being said, Remington, I may or may not have left out a crucial element of the mechanics of the world to you.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on ReZero?
Should be mentioned, because we watched a little bit extra, there will be some spoilers up to episode 7 or so. So if you don't want any spoilers, you can probably hear about the first couple episodes, but you probably, if that catches your fancy, you probably want to watch it before we go too far.
That seems fair.
So we start the show off. It's like an ominous gas station. It's shot like a horror movie, which I always appreciate. He's just browsing. And then he leaves, he blinks, all of a sudden he's in this magical world, and he doesn't hesitate. He's a weeb. He's like, oh yes, I've been isekai'd. Perfect. Which is what weebs and otakus are always fantasizing about. So as soon as it happens to them, it's just, of course, no hesitation.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're a Hikikomori otaku with no friends and no social life, of course you're going to be weirdly excited when you get transported to another world where you don't have to deal with that bullshit.
Yeah, he's stupidly sure of himself, and the world is a little bit weird. Like, all right, it's your standard fantasy fare, except they're in this very busy road, right? And on this very, very busy road, it's a combination of like frontier Wild West style covered wagons and Victorian style carriages just side by side, which is a strange choice.
But it's an interesting choice.
A bit of a weird one, but he starts to sort of explore the world. There are demi-humans all around him. Even though there are demi-humans, thus far, we've not interacted with anyone who's not mostly human. Because you run the full gambit. There's like a bunch of different reptile people. None of them have even, I think, spoken thus far. But I did like he wanders into a bar that turns out to be demi-humans only. You know, that's a nice mild change. Normally they're racist to the demi-humans. It's nice to have a little bit of racism going the other way. Gives it some variety.
A little bit of human racism, if you will.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't faced some human racism in a while in society. Thank goodness that's gone.
Oof. I feel like our privilege is showing, Remington.
So he ends up going in this dark alleyway, right, to gather his bearings, as one does. And in the alleyway, he gets mugged by a bunch of dudes. They show up, and they're like, hey, we're mugging you right now. And then a cat girl shows up, and he's like, oh, you're my savior. And then she just eats away. And he's like, what the fuck? Then they go to mug him, and he attacks them. He does sucker punch them, so, you know, he gets an advantage on that front.
Right.
He also roundhouses a small child that's trying to mug him, which is great.
Not actually a child, but might as well be.
Yeah, it's a small child as far as I'm concerned. And when you roundhouse a small child, all right, things are looking up.
Yeah.
But then the last one has some knives, so you can't really sucker punch a dude with the huge knives. Fortunately, his savior, the inferior waifu, shows up.
Okay, so you're not gonna piss off as many people. If that's your actual opinion, then you're not gonna piss off as many people.
So the inferior waifu shows up, and she saves him, sort of
That'd
like
be Amelia.
Yeah, half-heartedly. She's like, sure, whatever. His first thought is, oh wow, how cute is this girl? Because he's a horny asshole.
Yes.
There's also Amelia has a cat named Puck, a magical cat. It doesn't shoot laser arrows, unfortunately. It does talk, which made me like it way less. I was like, oh, cute cat. Then it started speaking, and I was like, I don't like this. I felt uncomfortable. Puck.
You hate it when anything gets a human traits and it's a cute animal, Remington.
I'm just reminded of the Pikachu incident, okay? And so...
You can't compare the two, Rem. This is a whole new character that you've never seen before.
Puck is uncanny. Puck, like, grows to human size in a moment, and that's real weird. I hate that. I really hate that.
I thought it was hilarious.
As it turns out, Puck is also a male. I thought Puck was a girl. Who knew?
I mean, you know.
Meanwhile, Amelia, she's doing a bunch of tsundere bullshit of like, oh no, I didn't really care to save you, you know, Baka. I hate it. I hate tsundere bullshit so much. Almost every time it's horse shit. And this time, yeah, it's just horse shit. It's uninteresting. It's bland. I don't give a crap about it. I don't at all.
Yeah, no, I'll say this right now, Remington. She starts off like that, and her staunch defenders come in about halfway through the season when Subaru does something really, really fucking stupid, and people start feeling sympathy for Amelia. So you don't have to worry. At this point, yeah, she's kind of your basic bog standard tsundere.
Yeah. So they go around searching for her lost insignia that was stolen by the cat girl we briefly saw earlier during the mugging.
She's not really a cat girl, and I have to specify that because there are cat people in this show.
Fair enough. She's cat girl like adjacent. She has all the heart and soul of a cat girl. She has
a Neko card, if you will.
Yeah. And so they go around, they find a lost child, they return it. There's a nice line as they're returning the child where speaking to the vendor whose daughter it is, and Subaru says, not only am I clueless, I'm broke beyond repair, which is your and my personal motto, frankly.
Yeah. No, remember when I said there's a lot of times where I heavily empathize with Subaru and I hate it?
That's one of those moments.
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm in a fucking closet right now, Remington. You have to understand that my situation could not be any more unenviable.
We also learned that Amelia is a flat earther, which is neat.
Hey. Hold on.
Essentially,
you can't just say that about.
All right, I guess I should explain.
Yeah, you should.
At one point, Subaru, like, she's asking where he's from, blah, blah, and he's like, oh, I'm from an island east of here. And she's like, there's no island. East of here, we're the easternmost continent, which is not how that shit works at all. Like, if I'm on the far eastern side of Russia, right, and I ask someone, where'd you come from? And they're like, oh, yeah, 100 miles east of here. I'm not like, what are you fucking talking about? We are the far eastern side. There's nothing east. No, that's not how that works at all. So the only conclusion is that Amelia's a flat earther.
The thing is, Remington,
frankly, the most
you do realize
interesting
it's
thing
a
about her.
medieval fantasy setting, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that and at this point, we actually don't know if the world is exactly like ours or not.
Are you saying that it's possible that their Earth is flat?
Have you ever read Discworld?
All right, so Sean and Amelia are flat earthers.
Okay. It's not Earth to start with. It's a very different place. And it's not super unreasonable if you're on a far eastern continent and if someone says, off of a country, off of an island to the east of here, and you think to yourself, well, there's nothing within ship sailing distance like that.
No, that's not what she said at all. That is not what was described.
Just move on, Remington. You weird nitpicking asshat.
So the first episode's cut into part 1 and part 2 because of fucking course it is. It seems like it's not actually cut into 2 parts. That was like, it seemed like a Crunchyroll decision because the part where it breaks off between episodes is not a good break. Am I wrong with that?
No. If it wasn't a Crunchyroll decision, it was like a broadcasting decision.
Yeah, because it's not like, all right, well, here's a proper ending. Like, they go to the slums, and she's like, all right, let me talk to the lesser spirits. They come back, and they were like, that was a good chat with the lesser spirits.
Yeah, no, like, it was a bit of a weird break, and I think I don't know the exact answer because I didn't bother looking it up. But if it's not a Crunchyroll thing, I'm going to wager it was a broadcasting thing because 40-minute anime episodes weren't, I should say, really a thing.
They shouldn't be.
Rem, you do realize most TV shows are 40 minutes, right?
Many of them warrant it. Anime usually doesn't.
Jesus Christ. So I think that they split it into 2 because they had a lot to get out in the first 40 minutes, but, didn't really have much choice in the matter because of broadcasting such. I could be wrong about that, and if someone knows the answer, that's fantastic. But at this point, that's what I assume is the case.
All right.
Yeah. And all the director's cut episodes are 40 minutes apiece, so it almost seems like that's what the director intention.
I see. After watching it, I'm not sure if that would help with the pacing. That's a risky game, doubling each episode. So
it's more along the lines of taking these split episodes and smashing them together in a more cohesive way.
Oh, okay. I get you.
Yep. Yeah,
so,
I watched 1 or 2 episodes of the director's cut to just get some clarification on that.
All right, so they're in the slums chasing after Felt, who is the thief, and now it's late at night, so they find this old, seemingly abandoned house. And they briefly discuss, like, what the plan is. The plan ends up being the stupidest plan in existence, and that Subaru is going to go in without Amelia. Keep in mind, Amelia is the one with super powerful magic. Subaru is the one who can do literally nothing.
Yep.
And, like, they briefly try to sort of justify it. I don't think they do a good job. It's really stupid. It's just a bad creative decision. Not great at all. So he goes in solo, and there's some nice fancy stuff adorning the walls, right? Things are looking pretty good. It's a shop of some sort. And as he's looking around, he's like, oh, that's a big old corpse. That's a real big corpse. It's a hefty lad of death and decay.
And, is that blood?
Oh boy, there is so much blood. Let me tell you about the blood in this show. Oh my god, this show loves its blood. You don't even need to, like, see the wound. There will be so much blood. And I'll tell you what, a couple characters are gonna get yeeted. Half of them in the next episode, we don't see any wound, but we see blood lining the walls, like straight out of The Shining. It's just crazy. I don't know if they felt less competent doing the wounds themselves. Very often, people are either slumped over or, like, on the ground with their wound to the ground. They don't like showing you the wound.
Yeah.
They'll do that a couple times throughout the show thus far, but they really want to avoid it whenever possible.
Yeah, I imagine that has to do with some more TV broadcasting stuff as well. But, sometimes a dramatic blood splatter is more than enough to indicate, this guy is royally fucked.
Yep, cause Subaru, he gets yeeted. It's weird because when he gets yeeted, and as we'll go, it appears like they were struck from the back and they fall forward. But as we learn, that is not the case. And it's just really weird choreography. Just a little bit off. But yeah, he gets eaten and he's like, oh god, I'm dying. And then that's when Amelia is like, hey Subaru, anything going on in here? You've been in here for like a minute and a half. And then she gets eaten and cut up as well. And then boom, flashback. And now Subaru is back speaking to an apple vendor like he was before. And he's like, wait a minute, what? So he's very confused. He thought he just died, but now here he is. He's a bit confused. The first thing he decides to do is go into the same dark alleyway that he will return to multiple times. And every time he returns to this exact same alleyway, he gets mugged. I don't know, like, is this his safe? Is this the only alleyway available? Is this the only one he thinks to go into? He doesn't learn. He's a dumbass.
Yeah, no, like I told you at the beginning, most of Subaru's issues are that he's a prideful dumbass, and he regularly forgets that it's an alley that he could have just easily sidestepped at some point. But no, he just ends up wandering back to that alley multiple times.
Yeah, and I wish it would have framed it as more like him being a dumbass, but it doesn't really touch upon that point, at least in this regard, which is not great. So far in episode 1, they're making a handful of, I would say, lazy creative choices, which is unfortunate. The muggers show up, and he just beats the shit out of all of them this time, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's more like he rushes them.
Because last time he sucker punched them, right? This time they were getting ready to beat him up already. You got this giant of a man, this dude who has knives, and then the short cunt who gives a crap about him. He just roundhouse kicked the kid. But it's very unbelievable, and this will also be an ongoing theme, that Subaru is just wildly talented and dexterous and amazing at fighting. He is. Oh my God, he should be doing MMA in the real world, because he is one of the single most talented fighters, especially given that he doesn't have much deliberate practice beyond swinging a wooden sword around sometimes. Oh man, he is ridiculously talented, as it turns out, which I think is a dumb choice.
Well, you don't have to worry about that too much, because he's going to get his ass kicked several more times.
I mean,
the
as he
thugs
should.
in the alleyway are basically the equivalent of low-scale power leveling for this show.
Yeah, but one of them is a fucking giant brute. One of them has a bunch of knives. One of them's a little kid. I don't give a shit. At least before, he had a sucker punch, right? This time, he doesn't get that advantage. And yet, he still kicks the shit out of all of them.
He still kind of sucker punches the guy with the knives first and foremost.
It makes no sense. I don't like Subaru being this like powerful, amazingly talented dude, especially because like the sort of archetype they're running with is, yeah, in this world he's a bit shit. He's a bit powerless and can't do much. But then they completely negate that in the first episode. It's dumb.
I still don't think it's that much of a stretch, but whatever, Rem. Continue. We have a lot to get through.
Yeah. So Subaru's like, okay, I should return to the house before, see what's up, what's going on. He doesn't realize that it's a time loop yet. So he goes back to the house, and he waits a bit. He meets Felt, and he's like, oh yes, you're Felt, I want to buy your thing. And he offers to trade his cell phone for it, which apparently they call it a magical item called media or some shit. Don't worry about it. And so she's like, all right, I'm willing to do that, but I'm gonna negotiate with my other buyer as well. The other buyer shows up, and she is like just an evil vampire woman. As soon as she shows up, you just know she's an evil vampire woman. She's not
the kind of woman our editor would date, is what
yes,
you're trying
our
to say.
editor, Dylan, he would be all over her, and then he would get disemboweled.
Yeah.
So negotiations go a little bit awry, because while Subaru, he wins the negotiations, his cell phone is more valuable than her 20 holy coins. Then he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna return it to their owner, and everyone is like, you're with them? And then the vampire woman disembowels everyone because she's the bowel hunter.
Yep, which is not the greatest nickname, I've got to say.
Yeah. The episode ends with another time loop. This time he meets Amelia, who thus far he has been told her name is Satella. He's like, hey, Satella. And she's like, why the fuck would you call me that name? And he's like, because you told me to call me your name. Once again, he has no idea what's going on yet. He still hasn't pieced it together in any way. He's very quick to be like, yes, I've been isekai'd. But for a time loop, he's like, what's going on? Who knows? Who could possibly
Honestly,
fathom?
to be fair, being killed is a very disorientating thing, I feel. I haven't been
suppose.
killed myself, but I feel like if I have been disemboweled on multiple occasions, I'd be a little confused as to what my current state is.
Yeah, it might be a bit jarring, to say the least.
Yeah.
So that is all the super long episode 1. We'll try to go a little bit faster now that we've covered all of that. Episode 2.
Yep.
All right, he goes, oh no, it's another mugging. And he's like, I can't deal with you guys. And then he dies. They just stab him this time, which is much more realistic.
Oh, yeah, because he just straight up ignored them this time and tried to get
Yeah.
past them.
So why
and-
does he always walk in the alley? Who knows? It doesn't matter.
Because he's a dumbass. It is. You have to accept the fact that Subaru is probably one of the biggest dumbasses in isekai history.
It's
And-
true. It's true.
And at least the show is aware of that.
Yep. Finally, he sort of realizes, he's like, oh, maybe this is a time loop. And then he goes, after realizing that, he goes into the exact same alleyway, not to test his theory, just once again, because he is a dumbass. He goes back into this alley that he just died in. He gets mugged yet again. This time he calls for the guards, and the super protagonist nice guy shows up. He's super duper nice. He has a dragon sword. You can tell by how nice he is that there's gonna be some twist about him later. There's gonna
I love Reinhardt. Reinhardt's great.
We've not faced Reinhardt's, we might have had some implications or foreshadowing. There's something more to Reinhardt than his nice guy persona. It's just to what extent, to what magnitude it is. We haven't seen that yet, but I'm confident it will arise.
I mean, it's pretty confident by the end of this little story arc. It's kind of apparent how he functioned. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. So Subaru, he goes back to the slums. He gets ambushed by Felt. And because it looks like he's trying to steal or something. Felt shows up, right? Tries to kill him. He dodges it and avoids it. And he's like, hey, I want to buy your thing. She's like, cool. She also... I don't understand why every isekai girl has to be super cutesy and or super sexy. Isekai girls do not get the range that guys do at all in any way.
I mean, that's kind of generally the case with anime in general.
Which is bullshit. It's just so uninteresting.
We're getting more and more as shows and series progress. Like, I've seen a lot of different body types in a lot of more recent shows and in some very popular shows as well. But generally speaking, the range of body types for females in anime are pretty slim.
Yeah, but it's not even just it's not just the body types, though that is also an issue. It's also like the personalities, because I feel like the guys in anime, and especially in shonen / isekai kind of stuff, the guys, there's a whole range of different archetypes. Many times, even when they're fitting the archetype, there's so many more archetypes to play off of. Meanwhile, the girls are all different flavors of the same old shit. And that's just, it's so much less interesting. And so Felt, she sort of falls into this almost like little sister kind of archetype, which, whatever, okay. They go to negotiate again. This time, someone's at the door. Oh no, it's gonna be crazy vampire. Oh wait, it's Amelia. Which, especially how they were doing it, they tried to build the suspense. It was very predictable. So far, 2 episodes in, I'm not sold on it. There's some interesting ideas there, but they are being crippled by the adherence to isekai tropes. And 2 episodes in, they haven't broken out of that and found their own footing sufficient. We get to episode 3. Episode 3. Everyone's arguing, and then eventually Vampire Girl does show up, and then everyone's fighting. Everyone is fighting and going to war and attacking one another. Amelia has the worst fighting style, at least for interest purposes, because it's just I aim and I shoot ice shards at you and I just keep doing that, and look, I'm still doing that, and that's 90% of her offense. Meanwhile, Vampire Girl is just evading, and that's at least 60 to 70% of this whole fight, unfortunately, which ain't great. Also, Puck, the cat spirit, super sexist. In this whole fight, he's like, wow, that's impressive for a girl. Can you believe a girl can do that? I didn't know girls could do anything. Girls. And it's like, we haven't seen this side of Puck, nor do we again But just in this one scene, Puck is ridiculously sexist to women, and I don't understand why. What the fuck? Is that like a prominent character trait? Because it hasn't been shown anywhere else.
Considering I completely have forgotten about it, I'm gonna go with no.
So just like this one scene, they were like, let's make Puck a misogynist. And it was like, sure. I mean, understand.
It could have been along the lines of like sardonic, oh, for a girl type of thing. But I can't recall the exact interaction myself, so I'm not gonna put my foot in that particular bear trap right now.
Yeah, no, it was just so weird. It was a weird moment. Fortunately, in this fight, you'd think that Subaru is dead away. Oh no, he is doing great. He's super strong, talented, and coordinated, saving people at the last minute, tossing things at just the right time. Boy, oh boy, is he so good. Which once again, I think is a dumb and unwarranted decision.
I mean, his like biggest strength is the fact that he is a bit more fit than the average otaku.
No, it's not that he's a bit more fit. He's far more fit than like anybody else. He is way above average. Like they present him as just like, I'm a little bit fit, but no, the shit he's doing is absolutely insane. We've seen him in a handful of fights, and all of them he's dominated. He fought with Felt, who's this super agile. She can use the power of the goddamn wind or some shit, and he was able to not even get a scratch on him. Now with the crazy bowel hunter bitch, he's still fine, and he's able to help others, and he's far more useful than he should be, and that makes him less interesting as a character. That's gonna be toned down a bit in the next arc, but in this one, oh god, it's not good.
It's establishing a baseline, honestly, because as the show goes on, Subaru's uselessness amplifies, and he only becomes of real use when he enters mystery solving type stuff
Then why not let him be useless here as well, instead of having him be wildly talented and amazing at fighting for some reason? And I remember they mentioned, oh, he played around with a stick sometimes. I get it. I don't think that's warranted justification, homie. I don't think that's it. Then as they're all fighting, eventually Felt, she runs away to escape, and then Reinhardt shows up because Felt ran into Reinhardt, and then Reinhardt was like, all right, cool, I'll show up. So he shows up, and now they're fighting, and they're fighting back and forth. Apparently, the big climactic end to the fight, like, they have a few moves to one another, and then they're like, all right, and it seems like a good end. So both of them dramatically state their name and title with a big old pose before doing their final moves.
It's very anime, and I love it.
I think it's especially dumb because they haven't leaned into, like, that element of shonen thus far, so it feels out of place. And if that's not, like, the style of your show, which so far it definitely isn't, it feels just dumb. So once again, a little bit of a dumb decision. Of course, Reinhardt wins. Bowel Hunter, she lives, but she yeets herself away. Then Subaru has like this acme wound. He's like, oh yes, I'm totally fine. And then his bowels explode with blood, which once again, stylistically, that would be fine, except we haven't seen stuff like that up till now. And it's so absurd and acme that this show, for the first handful of episodes, has no idea what it is. It has this grab bag of stuff, very few of which actually work. I think it's in the next arc that it starts to figure out what it actually is. But in the first arc, there's a lot of interesting ideas. Boy, oh boy, what a clusterfuck. And the episode also ends with Felt being like, hey, you can have your insignia back. And like everyone's been like, all right, Felt, you were a thief, but you know what? You're fine now. We're gonna let you go. And then Reinhardt sees that she stole the insignia, and he's like, actually, I'm either going to arrest/kidnap you for that. Like it's sort of like implied that it's an arrest, but he did mention he was off duty, and thus like that's not his jurisdiction. So it's possible he did just kidnap a 15-year-old girl. Wouldn't be surprised. And so that's generally your first arc, right? It's not ideal. It has so many flaws. It doesn't know quite what it is. Amelia is boring, but maybe there's more to her. Subaru is terrible this first arc. Not just like, oh, he's a terrible person. He's a terrible character in this first arc. Really, 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 really bad. Just atrocious. The other characters that we saw felt has potential. Reinhardt seems neat. There's Old Man Rom. He's cool. So like these other characters that we're getting, they're nice, and we're building a nice ensemble. I appreciate that. But first arc definitely struggling to find its footing, I would say. The next 4 episodes are the second sort of sub arc, right? Mm-hmm. We have Subaru. He wakes up in a big fancy mansion. He sees 2 maids, and it's like, all right, cool. So he's like, oh man, that's so fucking sexy, because he's the fucking worst around.
Yep.
He looks around at the mansion. He opens the door. He finds this. She seems young. She's probably ageless, so that they can have the lolly factor or some shit. Am I right about that?
She's not human, so yeah.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, cool. So it's like, I might look like an 8-year-old girl, but don't worry, I'm a turtle or some bullshit.
You don't have to worry. They don't really sexualize her at all, so you don't have to worry about that.
Her name is Betty. First thing he says to her is like, hey, you should really smile, because apparently he needs to harass and sexually harass literally every girl he comes across.
Oh yeah, no, he's trying to be that cool anime protagonist that he's read about and watched so many anime of, by saying like the first like weirdly anime thing that comes to his mind when he meets somebody, and it usually gets him in a lot of trouble, which I appreciate.
I'm gonna put an asterisk on that though, because it like gets him in trouble, but it gets him in trouble in the way that tends to be not that bad, and sort of like, hey, you really shouldn't have said that, but it's pretty nice that you did, which is bullshit. Like, that is not how that should work. Being a pervy asshole isn't like, oh, it's embarrassing, but I guess it's still pretty flattering. No, not at all. The most guilty of this is Amelia, who is frequently just like, oh yeah, totally, I don't care that you're a pervy asshole, you're just so nice and charming. So I worry that they like up till now tacitly endorse this strategy and would further encourage weebs to behave exactly like this, which I've railed against many times. This is not good social skills, y'all. Do not do this. Everything he has done, don't fucking do it.
No, I told you before, Rem, the whole point of the show, by the end of the first season, hell, even halfway through the first season, if you have any modicum of self-awareness, you'll realize, hey, wait a minute, Subaru is a piece of shit.
With all due respect, Sean, I say this knowing that many of our community are in this camp. Weebs are not known for their self-reflective abilities. They're not known for their awareness and introspection. That is not a defining quality, let me say. That's not to say no weebs are self-aware, but I would say that a disproportionate amount of them aren't, which is unfortunate. If
they're happy watching Sword Art Online, so what does it matter?
Perfect.
Yeah, a lot of the time, people of that particular flavor have dropped the show because it's a bit too real sometimes.
Yeah. So we meet the owner of the mansion, Roswell. Roswell, he is a dark clown boy. Dark, glamorous clown boy is how I'm going to describe Roswell.
And I love him. He's fantastic.
It's pretty solid. I like the decisions. And Roswell's like, anything you want is yours. And Subaru's like, I want to get hired on as staff. And they play this as a bit of a joke later about how stupid of a decision this is. But it also doesn't, like, for it to be a stupid decision, be like, oh, no, I should have just said I should be a guest, right? For that to make sense, like, there was no reason for him to say hire me on in the first place. Like, that's not the Subaru we know. So a bit of a character disparity here. They're still figuring out who Subaru is up till now, I think. Because so far a little bit dissonant. We see Rem and Sister, who thus far in all of the interactions. Oh no, I know. I don't know if Rem knows, because in 95% of all, whenever they're on screen, it's, ah yes, Rem. Ah yes, Sister. Oh yes, Rem Rem does this. Ah, yes, my sister does this.
Well, yeah.
And so it's just Rem and sister. And Rem is better at everything than her sister, which, relatable. And so... And so, they sort of discuss, the importance...
You don't have a sister.
No, but I have you, Sean. And so...
Hey. Hold on. We need a vote right now. Of the two of us, which of the two of us is more effeminate? Come on. Come on. You're a man who has gone on video multiple times wearing dresses.
I mean, you're not wrong. I would just argue that adds to the appeal and makes me even better of the sisters out of us two. Out of Sean and Remington is the best sister and better at everything than my sister.
See, now you're just gonna get more female art of us. You realize that, right?
Oh, God, there's already so much.
Yeah, you've just opened the floodgates. We're gonna have all kinds of. We're gonna have both of us dressed up as Rem and Ram now. You realize that's gonna be a thing.
Oof.
Like, it's gonna be a thing, and I don't know if I am in love with that idea or if I am scared to death by that idea.
I'm definitely scared to death. So, throughout this discussion, we also learned that the insignia, it's super important because it's a royal insignia that shows that you are capable of being in the royal lineage, basically. And apparently, Amelia, because she's also a dumb cunt, thought that the best place for this wildly important insignia would be in a very loose dress pocket in a location in town where we have been told pickpocketing is extremely common. In other words, Amelia, also a dumb bitch. So we get a nice little montage of Subaru learning how to be a good servant and working on everything, right? There's some quote-unquote comedic moments in this that I do not think really work. Thus far, almost all of the moments of comedy have not really worked. They've been sort of like cringy and or juvenile. At their best, they're tolerable. At their worst, I actively dislike them. Another problem is that there's not a whole lot of chemistry between a lot of the characters. Primarily, the characters I'm thinking of is Amelia and Subaru. There's no chemistry there at all. And I think a lot of it comes the fact that Amelia, any moment with Amelia where like she's supposed to display authenticity, depth, or warmth, it's bad. It fails. It does not work. I don't know, like, the voice actress seems to be doing a good job, but it feels like Amelia's just in a separate show compared to everyone else and has no connections with anyone. So they're trying to build up, like, this Subaru-Amelia romance, but there's no chemistry or connection there at all. It's just, like, Subaru being like, hey, I like your boobs. And then Amelia's like, oh, ha, 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 ha. You, and that's like their dynamic. It's not good at all.
I will say, I actually kind of think this is on purpose, Rem, because it does seem like entirely one-sided on Subaru's side, doesn't it?
I disagree, because they've tried to imply that Amelia also has an interest in Subaru, but it's just been a real shitty relationship. Like, they've been overt in their implications there. It has not been subtle. But yeah, the chemistry just isn't there. It doesn't work. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why, like, Amelia, her character feels so, like, emotionally bottlenecked and just nothing works. Because her character, she'll laugh, she'll smile, but none of it feels real. It's supposed to. You're supposed to have these moments, but none of them work. Amelia's god-awful. Good God. And the dynamic Subaru doesn't really work. So, we also, we have that going on. He falls asleep. He gets a date with her set up and promised, and he's super excited for that. Throughout this, we've also had a few moments where, like, Subaru is, like, a good person. But thus far, they haven't felt super sincere. It hasn't felt much like an extension of his character. Rather, it's felt like, here's a moment where he's not all bad and he's actually good sometimes, or he's trying to get tit. The one moment that Subaru, like, I actually felt all right, yeah, that is a good moment from Subaru. And it feels like a good moment. Like they succeeded with it. Was way back when he was rescuing the lost child in the market, right? And he did a little magic trick to make the girl smile and get comfortable with them. That's unironically the only moment that's felt authentic with Subaru being a good person.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's not a good person, but yeah. No, I agree. Like, that is easily the best moment.
All of the
and
others, it feels just like insincere, like he's trying to get in their pants, which it's not even always trying to display it that way, right? But it just doesn't feel like it works with what they've presented thus far. It feels like, yes. It doesn't feel like, yes, here's a lovely fleshed out character that has a bit of both. It feels like, here's a character who's this way, but let's cram this in there occasionally too. So yeah, then he falls asleep and he wakes up and oh no, there's been a time loop. And that's sort of how we end episode 4. So the time loop, it's nice because it makes this question like, did he die? If he died, how could he have died? He just fell asleep. Do we not understand the time loop as good as we think we do? Right. Which is nice. Good, intriguing questions. The next episode, he wakes up, he talks to Betty. They have a chat, and he asks her some questions. It's nice to see like the contrast and the differences. So many isekais, they have your standard, like imagine them gamifying your standard RPG game, right? What ReZero does is it is an isekai that does a story version of a mystery, not even just a mystery game, of just a choose your own adventure game, right?
Right.
One where you will frequently have to backtrack and go back in the pages to the last point you were at. And it does a decent job at this. These last 3 episodes that we're gonna discuss are actually good. They're pretty darn good. The first 4 episodes, I have a lot of qualms with. And I will still continue to have a couple of qualms because Amelia is still on the screen quite a bit. But the last 3 episodes, it's actually interesting because it fleshes out these side characters, right? And so we'll have Subaru make some decisions and we'll be like, okay, but then he'll go back. He'll make some different decisions at key moments and that will have different ramifications. He'll build bonds with different characters. We'll learn more about these different characters and their relationships. And that's really neat to see.
Yeah, no, like, that's where the show really hits its stride. You can see why I kind of needed to use a BS rule on this, right?
I do, because the first, I'll put it this way, I don't think ReZero necessarily passes the 3-episode test. Doesn't do great at that. You'll probably need to watch a little bit more. With this,
I think it worked for me personally, but that's just because, my tendencies, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, for a lot of people, those first 3 episodes sold the show for them, at least until they realized, oh god, the show is about me, I hate myself, I'm going to go commit Sudoku now.
Yeah,
and by that, I mean they're going to go start...
I think
they're going to solve some math.
Yeah, there you go. I think the first couple episodes, they succeed in like building a bit of intrigue, but there's so many mistakes and so many tropey shortcomings that I don't think, if it captures you, good. If it doesn't, oof. Especially because I feel like the like pacing and the storytelling of the show is actually decent. Like, even though the first 3 episodes aren't fantastic, this is not a show I would say skip the first 3 episodes. I've said that for quite a few different, especially shonen, that you can skip this number of episodes and you'll be fine, especially with all the flashbacks. Fortunately, ReZero doesn't fuck with flashbacks. In fact, many of the episodes, they feel like they have to fill to the brim, and you won't get like an end credits, really. You'll just continue getting more show because they're like, we need to keep filling this to the brim, which I appreciate. Like, it shows that they put some thought into it. This show is starting to hit its stride at this stage. And so we in episode 5, we have Subaru. He tries to repeat everything. That does not work out how he wanted to. He needs to learn to read and write with Ram. There's like this discussion of possibly cutting his hair. He has Amelia teach him, and that's completely uninteresting because Amelia is such a fucking terrible character. Good God. Like, at least Subaru is interesting sometimes.
She gets better.
Subaru's interesting sometimes. Amelia is terrible.
Yeah. Like I said, the divide between the waifu debate here starts after about the 14th episode, when Subaru becomes a real fuck-up in a particular way. So, yeah, no, Amelia is pretty awful in the first half. I will say that.
Yeah. So, Subaru, he gets a date with Amelia, and he's like, now I'm gonna stay up all night. And he starts feeling super sick and queasy and delirious. He ends up, he stumbles into the hallway, and then he gets yeeted by an unseen force in an unseen way somehow. And it's like, oh man, he gets murdered. And this is the second time that they've ended an episode with, and then somehow from someone he was killed somehow. And they don't show like the who or the what. And I get they're trying to build some suspense. Bit of a lazy way to do so.
I honestly think they make up for it with how brutal it is, though.
I mean, it helps that it's a bit more brutal. Though it emphasizes, I think the only wound that the animators feel comfortable doing consistently is losing a limb. If you lose a limb, they'll show it. Because all they need to do is show the limb. Any other wounds? Like, we saw a bowel cut once, right? Mm-hmm. Almost every other wound, it's either been you lose a limb or we don't show it at all. And I think maybe just the animators were really struggling with that. Unironically, I think that's the reason why. Because they deliberately try to hide it at multiple points. And it's not like, oh, they're not trying to hide the gore. The blood in here, like, he pricks his finger and it's a blood shower. Like, they're not worried about the gore. I genuinely think the animators just struggle with wounds, which is a bit of a weirdie. Not the worst thing, just a weird thing.
Yeah, I also think it might have something to do, like I said, with TV stuff as well, because this did air on TV, so...
Well, yeah, but they are not hesitant about the gore. If they were worried about that, they would tone that down a little bit. They're not. So we get to episode 6. Obviously, he has returned. He's waking up and he's like, ah, crap. And so he's like, all right, well, let's change things up a little bit. Let's investigate. He decides, all right, I'm going to be a guest this time. He chats with Betty about curses. He discusses fairy tales with Ram. And oh boy, we get our favorite, the story of the red and blue ogres. Oh, now listen, this is a fun story.
I feel like I gave you a really bad introduction to this Japanese folk tale, because your introduction was our Ore Monogatari, and
which is a terrible, terrible anime.
We still get emails about that one, by the way, Rem. It's been 2 years and people are still upset about it.
And it's like, don't get me wrong, the red and blue ogres, it's a very thinly veiled metaphor for Ram and Rom.
Rem and Ram.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking old man Rom.
Rom is the old man. Yeah.
He's my favorite of the sisters.
He looks the best in the maid outfit. That is true.
Ram and Rom. But Rem and Ram,
I just can't wait till Rim to show up.
oh, risque.
Ooh. Yeah.
So, obviously a thinly veiled metaphor for Rem and Ram. They don't even really let you piece it together because Ram gets excessively frustrated about it and is pretty overt about why. And so eventually Subaru is like, all right, I'm gonna do a stakeout, right? I'm gonna act like I'm leaving, then I'm gonna go up on the top of a mountain and I'm gonna watch for him, see what's up. And so he does so, and then you have what's it called, Sean? A giant metal spike ball. What's the specific?
A flail?
Flail. Yeah, you have a huge flail shoot out of the forest right at him, and he's like, excuse me? As it turns out, it's none other than your favorite Rem. Rem is here, and let me just say, yandere way better than tsundere. In almost every show I've seen, the yandere is more interesting, and so we're getting yandere tendencies from Rem because she wants to murder a bitch.
Yeah.
So she goes after him. She talks about how he smells of the witch, and how he's obviously up to something, and Subaru has like a crisis. He's like, what the fuck, man? This is bullshit, which is reasonable. And then he gets flailed to death.
Very, very violently, I might add.
And you know what? From one Rem to another, I too have always dreamed of just murking an isekai protagonist. Like, that is something we share in common.
Except I feel like your reasons are less noble, let's say.
Hey man, who needs nobility when you can murder an isekai protagonist? They deserve it. Almost every isekai protagonist deserves to get murdered.
I swear to God, we're gonna end on cereal one of these days.
Then we get to episode 7. He wakes up and he's like, all right, well, obviously I need to get the fuck out of here. And I really like the notion of, he wakes up, he's stuck in a time loop with his killer, but he obviously doesn't want to alert, like, his killer or be too overt about it, which is a neat dynamic. They don't necessarily go the direction I would have liked them to with this, or, like, build up that specific intrigue, which I would have liked to see a little more of, but they still do interesting things. So, good enough.
Yep.
He goes to Betty and he's like, hey, Betty, so, here's the thing. Well, he wakes up and he has like this fear curse within his soul, at some point, and he's like, shit's gone wrong. Something's going on. So he's like, hey, Betty, hypothetically, if this exact thing were to happen to someone, what could that be? And he gets help from Betty, and he's like, could you, like, protect me, please? And Betty's like, sure, okay, I guess. And so he goes to sleep, and this is the night where it's like, oh no, this is the murder night, and he has terrible, terrible spooky nightmares, and he feels like he's gonna die, but fortunately, he feels like he's been saved by Betty. And he wakes up, he gets in the library, and it's like, oh man. But even though he's alive, the mansion is aflutter because there has been a death. Rem is dead. And you know what? That makes sense. If I can't murder, then I also die. That is how I sustain my lifeblood.
Jesus Christ, Rem. You're gonna get your personal FBI agent knocking on your door any minute now.
I already have one. His name is Stanley. He does good work. Thank you, Stanley. By the nature of his job, he listens to all of our episodes because he has to. Thanks, Stanley.
Poor bastard.
Good old Stanley, the FBI agent.
Our most flushed out character on the show.
Yeah. So, Subaru is like, all right, like, you got Ram, she's pissed and angry and super suspicious of Subaru. Is like, what the fuck? Roswell is a bit angry as well. They want to murk Subaru, but Betty is like, hey, I said I would protect Subaru, so don't fuck with Subaru. And Subaru's like, you know what, y'all? Fuck this shit. I'm out of here. Fuck this. I'm done. Which, you know, that is fair. That is reasonable. This feels like finally Subaru's starting to feel like an actual person. They're starting to figure out how to make Subaru a character, and an interesting one. He's starting to hit his stride and be interesting, right? So he runs away and he's being chased by especially Ram, who wants to kill him. Betty shows up. He ends up at the top of the cliff. Betty shows up at the top of the cliff. Betty's like, yo, I'm still gonna like protect you and shit. And he's like, I appreciate that. Then Ram shows up and Ram is like, I'm a kill a bitch. My sister's dead. And they talk a little bit about what's going on, right? And Subaru, he can't explain it to them. And so he's like, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta yeet. So he yeets himself off a cliff.
Yep.
And that's the end of episode 7. Him being like, all right, shit got real fucked. Let's try again.
Yep.
So yeah, that is the 7 episodes that we've seen. That's an overview. Lots of intrigue, some lasting mysteries that we didn't cover in these 7 episodes, which are intriguing. And yeah, this show, it has so many flaws in it, especially early on, but to its credit, it has plot development very consistently. It has character development very consistently. It's constantly moving forward. It's building its ensemble cast and its external characters, fleshing them out a fair deal, which I really appreciate, right? Amelia's still awful. Subaru started out terrible, but he's starting to get better. All the other characters are pretty good. No huge complaints about any of the secondary characters, really. And, you know, some interesting ideas, some nice mysteries. I think that overall, I like this show a little bit. And I didn't think I was going to, because the first couple episodes, I thought it was going to be yet another. It has so much potential, and yet it fucked it, because that's what it looked like it was going to be. Fortunately, especially with the second arc, it figures out exactly what it is. It's like a slice of life with a driving plot so often, which is real nice.
And some heavy horror elements thrown in for flavor.
Yeah, so like once this show sort of figures out that slice of life with constantly driving plot and spooky horror mystery elements, Hell yeah, I'm down. That's interesting. I like it. So yeah, I didn't think I would. I really thought it was going to be yet another critical review because the first couple episodes, while it showed promise, oh god, it was the same tropey bullshit I've seen a million times. But finally, we get to see something a little bit different, a little bit new, very interesting ideas. So this show, it like salvaged itself in the last half of things.
Oh, yeah. And the show only continues to do more and more interesting things while regularly giving Subaru reality checks that he needs to fucking check himself before he gets wrecked, as the kids say. Because holy fuck, does he make some stupid decisions in the future as well, because he's an entitled, prideful prick. But that just makes the redemption of when he fixes shit all the better. Because you'd think that removing the threat of permadeath from your main character would remove a lot of the tension, but honestly, the amount we care for all of the side characters kind of surpasses his pseudo-immortality, as it were, which is very, very good in my opinion.
They've sort of like played with the idea of like, does he have a limited number of revivals or whatever? Which amazingly, I'm not even super interested in that idea. If they decide to do that, sure, why not? But I would be fine if it has unlimited uses.
Yeah.
Because once again, the stakes don't necessarily need to be catastrophic and oh god, I'll permanently die. The stakes could very easily be I could end up making the wrong choice and then like have a different save point, right? Where I've just fucked everything now, which I imagine they're going to do at some point. But
I mean, they kind of just did there when he yeeted himself off of a cliff.
Well, yeah, but so far it still seems like his save point will be the same. So he'll be able to change that still. But yeah, and I really like the try again. It's a choose your own adventure story with New Game Plus. Right.
Yep.
And they actually make it work, and they make it work decently.
Oh, are you curious to hear what the score on Mal is for this show, Reb?
I assume that, I think this show, especially with how much I've heard about it, I think it's going to be definitely in the 8s. I'm going to say 8 point, I'm going to go all out. I do not think it would be this high, but I can totally understand why people would put it this high. 8.3 or 4.
Well, with 785,000 users voting on it, it is exactly 8.30.
Oh, hey, I see. I'm tapping into the weeb knowledge. I probably would have that as a little bit high for my personal rankings. I think it has potential to be that high and even much higher. I still don't quite think it's lived up to its potential thus far, and it still has some critical flaws to it. But even with those critical flaws, it works. It's succeeded, and it surprised me in doing so.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. When we come back to it, it might continue to do so. There are some very interesting plot threads. There's a lot of really solid world building. Like, it quickly becomes into some political stuff with the royalty heiress stuff, as well as the threat of various arcane stuff. And, oh, man. There's a very, very good antagonist by the end of this series. And I say good as in, fuck, that's creepy. As well as some interesting stakes and interesting character development and some interesting redemption in the terms of Subaru. And by the end of this first season, I'm comfortable saying he is a half-decent person.
Do you say that because you believe it, or because you need to believe that about yourself, Sean?
Look, we're not here to split hairs right now. I feel like, good art is all about ambiguity and leaving things up to interpretation. So that's what I'm going to do with it. But congrats, Rem. You're on what most people believe to be the correct side of the waifu war. And hopefully the second season will prove you wrong, because I'd love for Amelia to be even more fleshed out than she is by the first season. To be
What's so weird is like she's the main girl so far. Why are they fucking up the main girl? I don't get. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like in this first part of the season, she is not all that interesting. She's your basic tsundere with a heart of gold, but it's a bit more surface level than her tsundere tendencies tend to be. Like, she's not as hardcore tsundere as other tsunderes we've dealt with.
She's also not hardcore anything. She lacks depth thus far.
Yeah, she'll get it. Don't worry. Like, she does even in this, and there's some pretty painful moments, let's just say, for those who have seen it. It's about episode 13 and 14. You know what I'm talking about. You hate it. I hate it. get to.
But it's
it reminds
also-
you of yourself. Oof.
Like, I'm sure it's a nice, oh fuck moment, real impactful. But I also think it's a little lazy to be like, oh yes, this character matters now only after this, like, devastating event happens. It's like, okay, build an interesting character separate from tragedy. You can then have tragedy happen, but the tragedy should not be the thing to make us care about them.
I'll tell you right now, Rem, the tragedy I'm speaking of has nothing to do with Amelia as much as it is Subaru causing tragedy for Amelia.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully she gets more interesting.
She does. But yeah, no, basically, from what I can tell, the perspective is this. Amelia is only interesting to Subaru, and I kind of feel like that's on purpose, but at the same time, it's not super great as a viewer experience.
I think you're giving a little too much credit to them, because it does definitely seem like the writers are clearly interested in her, and I don't think her being intentionally bland and shitty is an accurate take.
I will say that one thing I find hilarious is on Mal, they usually sort the characters by, like, votes and how popular they are and whatnot. But sometimes the character organization is a bit off, and it feels like it was on purpose. Because the first character that's listed is Amelia, and she has about 20,000 user votes on there. Then it's Subaru with 11,000 user votes. Followed by Rem with 41,000 user votes. I feel like Mal might be shifting things in a particular direction, and I can't say that for certain, but everybody after Rem is in descending order of popularity, so I don't know what to say about that.
I mean, hey, we don't need to reaffirm what our listeners already know, and that is that Rem is best waifu.
Yeah, I'm willing to agree with that at this point as well. Hopefully my opinion changes. I actually really want my opinion to change, Remington. That I have hope for this show. I have hope and dreams, especially since if good things happen to Subaru, then maybe something good could happen in my godforsaken life, God damn it.
Well, we'll see.
Alrighty. And then I suppose I have one final question to ask you, Remington. Any chance you'd like to watch some more ReZero with me sometime?
Amazingly, didn't think this was gonna be the case for most of the time I was watching it, but yes, Sean, I would actually like to see more of the show and of my namesake.
Fantastic. I can't wait to dive into more despair with you. But with that being said, before we get out of here, we do have a little bit of house cleaning we need to do. If you enjoy the show and would like to support us, then I have a perfect solution for you. You can leave us a review on whatever platform it is you listen on, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, and helping us grow by word of mouth is an excellent decision as well. However, if you'd like to more directly help the show and have the cash to spare, we don't want you to go broke doing this, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/animeoutofcontext, pretty easy to find, where you can gain access to all kinds of lovely bonus content, including having the opportunity to have Rem just horribly mispronounce your name. And Rem, who are some of the people that we need to thank this week?
Well, of course, I would like to send our shout out and love to all of our bland bitch protagonists, as well as our magical girls. But then, a tier above, we get to our yandere waifu, who is going to dash us with a flail for even talking to their sister and being associated with the witch. And on that list, we have Sarah Birch, Kazu Morocco, Dill Pickles, McAlex, Juliana, Salty Pretzel, Glenn Michael Dolan, Ross Palmer, Jacob Livingston, H. Wood, Farmer, it's been 2 weeks since we have had a Centaur's Life reference weeb, Alexander Nasiensenyo, Rem Lust for Shane, Andrew Rauke, Matthew B., Devin McCutcheon, Sage Schiffner, Reverse Kismo, Mechazap, Rare Kumiko, Ready to be Isekai'd, Ross McBean, Remington Merrill, Visual Bin, Hunter Davies, Alex from Australia. Remington is my tsundere waifu. To absolutely every single one of you, thank you so much. You're all phenomenal. But there is a tier above. We're going across the pond. We're heading to Hogwarts. And you know what, Sean? There's been a lot of drama about sports, whether they're happening or not. The past few months, it's been crazy. But let's celebrate some Hogwarts sports with some Quidditch. Everyone gets their own Quidditch team. We get Eternitarian. You're obviously the Wimborne Wasps. Then we have Delina Perez, who, you're the Montrose Magpies.
Oh, wow.
Miguel Delion, You're Ron's favorite, the Chudley Cannons.
Oh God, Cannons fans, they're the worst.
It's just ridiculous. Cat Zodiac, the Holy Head Harpies.
That sounds about right.
Then, Pilkster, P.S. Y'all better do Sympho gear or so help me. Well, congratulations. You are now a proud member of Puddlemere United. And
Okay, the only thing more simpy than Puddlemere United is Subaru for Amelia.
and then, last but not least on this list, we have Stephanie Delgado, who, the Ballycastle Bats.
Sorry, could you hit me with that one more time?
Here, I'll give you in their native Irish tone. The Ballycastle Bats.
Thank you. I could hear the potatoes falling from your lips. It was very good.
Apparently, they have the mascot Barney the Fruit Bat, which is great. So
Hey,
there
I'm
are
all
all
about
of
a
your
fruit
teams. I expect you all to represent your Quidditch teams appropriately the next games you go to. But yet again, there is a tier above. We got the Chefano Musco tier getting presidential up in this bitch. And you know what? This week, everyone gets a waifu. Everyone is getting their own waifu to take home. But which waifu will it be? I might need some assistance on this one, Sean, with your encyclopedic waifu knowledge.
Okay.
And of course, we want to start things off with starting things off nice. How do you do, fellow kids? Very relatable. Which waifu? I mean, obviously, Coach Morales from last week, but that's a husbando. We'll work on husbandos next week, okay?
Yes.
You get a husbando next week, but this week we're only doing waifus. So, which waifu is appropriate here?
Oh man, for how you doing, fellow kids? I feel like the only thing that's appropriate is
We're looking for, like, all-star waifus here, right?
Oh fuck, all-star waifus, and here I was gonna get like weirdly specific.
I mean, you can get super specific. I'm just saying we're running the full gamut.
Okay. How you doing, fellow kids? I feel like that is a Kaguya-sama from Kaguya.
All right. And what about Almighty Sinner? Almighty Sinner been doing some sinning in the dark depths of hellfire. But what appropriate waifu is good for them?
Sounds like a Yuno Gasai man if I ever heard
Yeah,
one.
I mean, how could it be anybody else? We have touchy diplomat, a little bit touchy, but maybe a little bit touchy-feely. Who knows? So which waifu do you think?
I know you made that try to sound good, but it definitely did not.
We love you, touchy
Not in
diplomat.
context.
Which waifu do you think is good for them?
You know, Touchy Diplomat, I feel like Touchy Diplomat is definitely a Rem fan, especially since how touchy Rem seems to have gotten in the last episodes we saw.
Darn right, represent. We have Silken Spectre. Silken Spectre with a very ominous period at the end. And so, what works for them? And be proud of me, I have avoided even a reference of a possible joke about ghostly
then I'll
tits.
make it for you. Let's go for, oh my god, I just blanked on her name. What kind of fucking weeb am I? What the fuck kind of weeb am I? Oh yes, let's go for Silicon Spectre, let's go for, Quetzalcoatl. You know,
yes, but of course.
The super, endowed, dragon from Kobayashi's Dragon
Oh,
Maid.
fuck. All right, okay.
Wait, was that? Yes, that was Quetzalcoatl. Yes, thank you.
And last but not least, on the Chef No Musco tier, we got Thick Mullet, who has the thickest of all mullets. With someone with as great of a mullet as this, we need someone who can match their hairstyle. We need a waifu with some amazing hair, Sean. So I'm relying on you to give Thick Mullet a waifu with hair just as fantastic.
Well, I feel like Thick Mullet is very deserving of, I have to pull up their name. You'd be surprised how few ridiculous female hairstyles there are. There's like 5 like standard ones. Oof, that's a bad choice. I can't do that one. That one will get me in trouble.
Hey man, I always say go for it.
The problem is it's a very, well, you said ridiculous hair, so I guess they get Ragyo Kyoryu in.
I have no idea. Who?
Well...
All right, I trust your decisions. Thick Mullet knows who it is. Thick Mullet, I hope you're pleased with whatever decision that is.
Oh, they won't be.
But then we
They will
go
not be.
even higher. This is the last month that this tier will exist. No one can sign up for it anymore. And so these 3 people are the only ones who will ever be Waluigi ever again for one more month. and then we'll never have to read any messages. On this...
Well, in theory, unless we get so desperate that we need to beg for
God,
help,
no. God, no.
Look, Rim, I'm about one step from becoming a cam girl. I'm terrified.
Listen. If we ever recreate the Waluigi tier, you are reading all the Waluigi messages, Sean.
Oh God, I don't want to do that though, Rim.
So
I'd rather be the cam girl.
On this tier.
By the way, guys, I have an OnlyFans. In case you're...
Oh God, just the most awkward, gangliest, sexy cosplay.
It would just be generic stuff like me eating a bowl of cereal, all that one fella on Pornhub.
So on this list, we start with Emoto Ahigao Uwu, who has sent us the delightful, much more wholesome message than expecting. And it is, "Wow, y'all are awesome, and this entire community loves what you do. Keep up the good work. We'll stick with y'all the whole ride." Very wholesome. Very, very wholesome.
Trying to put a little bit of southern flair on your Waluigi. I do appreciate that. That's very good.
I have my Waluigi is from Louisiana, and I've always found Italian plumbers just a little bit overdone. Next up on the list, we have Killer Queen Requiem in the Waluigi tier. And Sean, would you do the honors of reading their message?
I will, especially since they requested me to.
Perfect. Even better.
Wah.
Look, we need to
get into the mindset, as it were.
Oh man.
Without dipping too far into Squidward. Waha, you fool! You fell victim to one of the classic blunders. The most famous of which is not to get involved in an anime podcast, but slightly less known as this. Never go in against a weeb when pride is on the line.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
That's really good. I like that one a lot.
Last but not least, we have Everyday E25 Earbuds by Raycon. We're getting Burger Kinged right now, Sean. That's what's happening.
Oh, we have to add an extra layer of sarcasm and disdain to this one.
First we should mention I personally don't know the quality of Raycon. I guess to emphasize how non-sponsored we are, we sort of just have to be like, fuck Raycon. Asterisk, unless Raycon actually approaches us and wants to give us a lot of money. In that case, hell yeah,
Considering Raycon actually provide a product, I'm okay with that. What I'm less okay with is the message you're about to read.
Yeah, because the Burger Kinging continues. All right, Waluigi, the ultimate shill. Let's do this. Wow. Today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, one of the biggest mobile role-playing games of 2019, and it's totally free. Currently, almost 10 million users have joined Raid over the last 6 months. And it's one of the most impressive games in the class, with detailed models, environments, and smooth 60 frames per second animations. All the champions in the game can be customized with unique gear and changes, your strategic buffs and abilities. Dungeon bosses have some ridiculous skills of their own, like taking your money. Currently, with over 300,000 reviews, only half of them are bots. Raid is almost a perfect score on the Play Store. The community is growing fast and highly anticipated. New Faction Wars features is now live. You might even find a squad out there in the arena and get harassed by all of them. It's easier to start now than ever with Raid's program for new players. You get a new daily login reward for the first 90 days that you play in the game so that you can build an addiction. So what are you waiting for? Go to the video description, click on the special links, and you'll get 50,000 silver. Free epic champion. Good luck. See you there. All right. That Waluigi does not endorse Raid Shadow Legends, contrary to popular belief. I also took some creative liberties a little bit with.
I mean, you kind of have to. Look, I mean, if we're gonna support a gacha game, it's got to be something, one, that's thematically appropriate, and two, not make me want to punch every YouTube advertiser in the face. You know?
Yeah. Like if they actually approach us, who knows? Maybe our tune will change. Maybe suddenly we'll be in love with it if they just really fill our pockets with cash. Until then, fuck Raid Shadow Legends.
We need the money, but we'll let you know how much our integrity costs in the future.
Raid Shadow Legends. If you would like to change our opinion, we can go from persecutors to advocates on the drop of a dime, or in this case, many dimes.
a large surplus of dimes. I need enough dimes to hit Remington upside the head with in order to convince him that this is a good idea.
Thank you so much. The support we get from you guys is absolutely astounding. And if you would like to contact us directly, whether it's for a comment, question, feedback, or recommendation, you can either tweet us at AnimeConPod on Twitter or send an email over onto animeoutofcontext@gmail.com, possibly with instructions on how to be better at Twitter.
We could really use the help, I'll be honest, because we're pretty bad. So far, I've only used my personal Twitter to, I don't know, follow Critical Role fans, and look at some cosplays and avoid the weird NSFW side of Twitter. By the way, Rem, did you know there's a weird NSFW side of Twitter?
I mean, man, I would argue the whole of Twitter is NSFW, whether it be for tits or just the extremely high levels of toxicity. That can't be safe for anywhere, let alone work.
Yeah, no, I had a micro stroke just reading it earlier today.
Fortunately, our listeners are not toxic. Thanks, Weebs. We appreciate it.
Yeah. And with that being said, thank you guys all so much for tuning in, as always. Don't forget to love each other. Please register to vote if you're an American. And as always, don't fuck your sister. Oh, Rem, you know me better than that. You know I'd consume copious amounts of potatoes.